Well, hello and welcome. Welcome to Talk Leadership with Cedrick. You know, everybody needs a little TLC, and I am Cedrick LaFleur, your host. I'm excited to be here with you again today. You know, Talk Leadership with Cedrick is where we focus on leadership and personal growth with business leaders, educators, and local thought leaders. Our goal is to introduce our audience to leaders who are making an impact with innovative ideas. Now, you know, our guiding leadership principle is the law of consistency, which says motivation gets you going, but discipline keeps you going and growing. See, you have to develop the good habits that lead to success, and just showing up is 80% of success. See, some people just don't show up. You can pretty much beat out anyone very easily if you show up consistently. You know, the boss, Bruce Springsteen himself, said a time comes when you need to stop waiting for the man or woman you want to become and start being the man or woman you want to be. You just have to show up. So tonight, folks, we have another dynamic leader with us in house, and I'm excited to talk with her. I've been wanting to talk with her for a long time, and finally we get her on the show. So now, you know, I always like to do a proper introduction of our guests. So let me do a proper introduction of my guests. Miss Sherice Kral is a certified John Maxwell team leadership coach and international keynote speaker and a trainer. She started her leadership career in 2008. You remember way back in 2008 in the United States Army, and she quickly rose through the ranks. Well, in 2010, Sherice began her leadership coaching company with the mentorship from two of Incorporated or Inc. magazine's top 50 leadership experts in the world. Now, mentors and being mentoring directly from John Maxwell himself, the #1 leadership expert in the world. Sherice has worked with multiple Fortune 500 companies and the United States military, but has found her passion delivering value for small businesses across the globe. After leaving the U.S. Army, at least 10 years of, after leaving the U.S. Army at almost 10 years of service in 2017, she now focuses on her 3 companies in leadership development, in small business strategy, and in life coaching, and serving her network as an executive board member on the Coaches Club within America Club Association and the general manager and owner of the ACA chapter in Louisville. So let's welcome, folks, an impressive resume. Let's welcome Miss Sherice Kral. How are you doing? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me on here, and I've been very excited to show up.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited. I'm excited to have you on the show as well. And so tonight, folks, as we always do, we bring experts from industry on the show. And when we bring them on the show, we want to make sure that we welcome them in the most special way. And we want to make sure that you get something as well while you're listening and while you're tuning in. So what we're going to do is we're just going to jump in, and you're going to get to learn all about Sherice. So tell our listeners about your journey to leadership, and how did you get to where you are today?
And you heard a little bit about it in my bio, but I really, the meat and potatoes of it, I had seen a lot of bad leadership in the Army. And that's supposed to be a place you go to for great leadership. But what they do is great management, not leadership. Mm-hmm. There's a difference. And so yes. I saw a lot of bad leadership, and it affected my life, my career, but most importantly, it affected the people around me, my friends. And that was really hard for me to handle. And so I got to a point where I couldn't handle it anymore. I had to make a decision, and I started grabbing some books to read. And actually, one of our pilots, because I was in an aviation unit, he handed me my very first John Maxwell book, which was absolutely incredible. And that really got me onto this idea of what leadership actually is and how power is something completely different than what we think it is in the Army.
Right.
And once I started learning that and started growing, I started seeing the results of what great leadership could bring in an environment and in a community, and how it can inspire people to become better.
Yes.
And that got me hooked. I became obsessed after that. So it's just an uphill or a downhill battle after that. Couldn't stop.
Okay. All right. So sort of like being hooked on phonics, right?
Yeah. Oh gosh, that's old.
So tell us something interesting and fun about yourself.
Goodness. I'm kind of a jack of all trades, honestly. I've lived quite a few careers, quite a few lifetimes already. And so I really have found that a lot of people don't understand all the diversity in my life. It's been difficult for them to pin me down into one category because of it, but of course I don't care. So
Yeah.
I think some fun things about myself, other than being in the Army, is I loved dancing. I was actually pre-professional in a ballet company for many years when I was a kid.
Oh,
And then
okay.
I competed in ballroom dancing and loved that. And I
Okay. All
guess
right.
I also love horses. I used to train horses for quite a while. So those are kind of my three big passions.
Okay. All right. So you love dancing and you'll jump right off the dance floor and hop on a horse and ride off into the sunset
And then get picked up by a helicopter.
and get, and get picked up by a helicopter. All
Then
right.
we
I
can
like
include all
that.
three of them.
Okay. All right. All right. All right. So then, all right. So folks, we're gonna have to put her dancing skills to the test. All right.
Well, hey,
We'll
now
have
I
to
need hip replacements. You got to slow
get,
down now.
I was gonna say we're gonna have a virtual dance off.
Mm, I love this
Not against
idea.
me because I have two left feet. So
I'll be in a wheelchair the next day, but I would do it as
okay.
long as I win.
All right. So Sherice, tell us about your business niche. What's your business niche?
Well, as you know, I have three different companies, but it all boils down, all three of them. I do it because it helps me push other people toward their passions in every single one. And the first one, of course, is my leadership development company. And I've been doing that for 12 years and absolutely love it. And I've been able to really help people with that in a way that I've never been able to reach people in the past. And so that one is very near and dear to my heart. And then I have a business strategies company. And with that, it kind of popped up by accident because everybody was having a hard time either transitioning from a traditional coaching business to an online coaching business, or
Hmm.
having some kind of brick and mortar and they needed an online revenue stream, or they just didn't know anything about business and their friends or acquaintances online that I really grew to care about, and they just struggled because they hated working a W-2 job and they really wanted to be 1099. And so I just kept helping people and helping people. And suddenly I realized I should probably be charging for this. So I built some aspects to that. And we ended up building a couple teams of people that can specialize in different areas. So it really helps everybody grow and develop in that field, in the online field. And then my
Okay.
last one is it's the private business club, the ACA Business Club. It's one of the largest private business clubs in the nation. And we're global now, which is exciting. We're also very old. We used to be a bunch of country clubs. A couple of presidents were even a part of the clubs. And now we've transitioned. We still have the country clubs, but we've transitioned to more business clubs. And that's what I'm a part of, that section. And actually, Cedrick, last week I got promoted. I own a club, but I also am the executive chair of the coaches club within there. And I just got promoted to be the leader, the director of all of the executive chairs, which there's about 30 of them for all of the
Oh,
interest
wow.
groups within the ACA. So that's a really
Okay.
exciting time for me.
Yeah, that is awesome. And so, audience, let's congratulate Sherice on this promotion. That's exciting for you. Congratulations. That's exciting news overall for women. And you know, when I think about what you just said, right? So you have three businesses. You are in the United States Army, and you are promoting upwardly in one of those business units. So, folks out there who are thinking about starting a business, who maybe are about to give up on their business, who are needed someone to inspire them, encourage them, motivate them to keep going. Tonight is why you should be tuning in. You may know someone that needs to tune in to hear this message on not giving up, on overcoming, of keep going, being persistent, being consistent. Make sure you share this message so they can tune in and hear this. So, what separates? Let's. I guess we have to take one of your business, but and you can decide which one. What separates your business from other businesses in industry? Maybe in the leadership development world.
That's exactly what I was going to choose, because that's really I like to call it my main one.
Okay.
It's the one I'm most passionate about, of course, and it's the one that's closest to my soul. What sets me apart, really, I think, as you know, anybody who's a coach, you don't have competition with other coaches. It's non-existent. You can create it, you can pretend it's there, but in reality, it's non-existent, because when people hire a coach, 90% of it is that they're hiring your personality. They're hiring how they connect with you. And we talked about this before we went live, and it's so true. And so obviously what makes me unique is me. But I'm also very excited to announce that I've been training in RMT, which is Strategic Intervention Coaching, with the Robbins Madness Training Center. And it deals with a lot of the neuroassociative conditioning methods, a lot of psychotherapy and neuroscience. So I'm bringing that certification into my leadership soon, and it's just going to skyrocket and help break through some of the limiting beliefs that my leaders and my clients have that that I couldn't work with before. I would get to a point where I wouldn't know what to do with them. And I hated, and I don't use that word lightly, but I hated not being able to help them past that point. And some people have childhood traumas or things that they've healed from, but are affecting daily habits. And they need to get that retrained and reprogrammed. They need to be able to move from that to become great leaders. And so that's why I got into the certification. So I'm kind of melding the two together now with John Maxwell and Anthony Robbins or Chloe Madonis, to be able to create coaching methods and a coaching program that's unstoppable for people. I don't think anybody else is doing that right now.
Yeah. So you're going to be falling into a gap, a niche that is the gap that's unfilled right now, right? And that's the beautiful thing about entrepreneurship. You have the ability, the flexibility to understand where the market has gaps in and then fill in those gaps. You see, the reason why McDonald's is successful is because they filled in a gap that was needed to be filled. The reason why Apple and Amazon and Google and Facebook are all successful, highly successful companies, is because they filled in the gap. And that sounds like what you're going to be able to do with your business concept, melting together John Maxwell and Tony Robbins programs. Awesome. So
yeah, and I say Tony Robbins because that's who everybody knows, but in reality, it's more Chloe Madonis. She is one of the first psychotherapists that have gone through all of this and trained so many people. Tony just learned it from her, and they work together on this program. So it's more her in reality.
Okay,
I
all
say
right.
Tony
Girl
because
power, right? Okay, I like that.
yeah.
I like that. So then we're going to talk a little bit more about when you're going to be rolling that out and how people can get engaged with that and all of those type things. So what made you decide to become an entrepreneur? Now, before you answer that, so now, you were in the military, and the United States military, in the Army, and I was Air Force. I know you guys are a little bit yes, maybe a little bit busier than us sometimes, but
We
um,
weren't as smart as you. That's what it boils down to.
so in the United States military, you're busy. You have a lot of stuff going on. What made you decide to become an entrepreneur as well on the side?
I don't talk about my childhood often, but I will say this one short story. When I was a kid, I grew up in northern Minnesota, out in the middle of the woods on a lake, and we had a little creek that ran down from the lake. And I came up with this great idea as maybe 9 or 10, maybe a little younger, that I was going to create the Jurassic Park River adventure down that creek. And I
Oh,
found
wow.
rocks that looked like eggs and I set them all up, and we had ferns growing on the sides of the creek. And I took my kayak and I forcefully threw my neighborhood kids into the kayak and pushed them down the river, and pretended to take their money for tickets and things like that. And then I made my older brother make dinosaur noises through the ferns and things. And we had this whole storyline that I'd built out and brought people down. And I told mom after the first day, I was like, Mom, we need to get everybody in. And we didn't live in town, but everybody in the neighboring towns, they need to come here and I can make so much money. And so I think it's something that I've always naturally had inside. I just didn't focus on it until, 2010-ish. 2010 is really when I started. And for me, this is going to sound silly because I was in the Army for so many years, but I don't like people being in charge of me. And it's funny, I don't know if you've heard this, but the people who don't like or have control issues, they are the ones that do the best in the military. However, in the civilian world, it's really hard for us. There
Yeah.
isn't quite as much rigidity and regulation. And so to not have that control makes us want to create that control. And with entrepreneurialism, there we go,
Yeah.
that creates the ability, if you take ownership of it, creates the
Mhm.
ability to have whatever freedoms and control you want. On top of the fact that you can inspire millions of people if you want to, and you
Yeah.
can make as much money as you want to. It's all up to you, which is the great part of it.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So it sounds like you had a vivid imagination
Oh, yeah.
to create this imaginary ride and have your brother make sounds as a child. So has that then is that what you're using as well to um, uh, uh, push your entrepreneurial career, because you have three different businesses, right? Is that vivid imagination is what's driving you?
It's interesting that you use the word imagination because as kids, we use imagination all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you ever heard the quote, but there's a quote that says that we're born geniuses, but we're raised or trained to be dumb. And so
Mm,
as children, we use a lot of our imagination. If you talk to so many billionaires out there and inventors, you have to use imagination to become successful. But as
yeah.
adults, we tend to use the word creativity instead of imagination. And they are different, but
Yeah.
they work very well together. And so if you hadn't asked me that, I would have said naturally that I use creativity or vision. Having a big vision is really what spurs me on. And I
Yes.
feel like I have lost a little bit of touch with my imagination side. I need to rebuild that a little bit, but I do think they all go hand in hand, even though they're not synonymous.
Yes. I agree with you, but I'm actually typing that quote because I like that quote. I might
You
have to
should.
use
I
that quote
wish
a
I
couple of
remember who
times.
said it.
So you said we are born as a genius, but we're raised to be dumb.
Yep.
I love it. I'm just gonna put unknown. Well, no, you know what? I heard it from you, so it's Sherice. And audience, we're gonna have that quote up on our scrolling across our banner. I like that quote.
He's gonna have
So
T-shirts and hats. No, I'm just kidding.
absolutely. I can see it now. Are you a genius or are you dumb?
I don't think the world's ready for that kind of honesty.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, probably not. But you know what? We can get away with it. It's our world. We're gonna make it, and we're gonna do that tonight at least. All right. So, um, so what's the best part of owning your own business? Like being an entrepreneur is one thing, but what's the best part of owning your own business?
I would say it's a toss up between a couple things, but ultimately, I mean, all human beings, every one of us ticks a different way. And so we have different passions and drives. We have different basic human needs that we need filled more than others. And for me, having the ability to sit from the background and push somebody else into the spotlight and say, this is how great you can be, just completely fills my gratitude jar, makes me feel great in life. And as a business owner, I can do that. You know, you can easily get away from that if you let other things like the finances and all this other stuff clog your brain. But at
Hmm.
the head of it, I mean, that's why I started any of these. And so that's why I try to keep in the front. But also for me, I've had quite a lot of health issues, especially the last few years. And with my businesses, and what's incredible about them is that you can create them. And if you do it correctly, you have a few different revenue streams that are different types of income. So active
Hmm.
or passive or reoccurring. And you can create a mixture of them so that if you can't do something, if you're out sick or you're bedridden like I was for so many months, you still have money coming in. And that's what I love about it. And you can't fire yourself unless you decide to quit. So I think that's the
Yeah.
great thing about it.
Yes, and yeah, firing yourself would be pretty, yeah, pretty bad. You know, remember that you were born a genius, but we were raised dumb. That'd be pretty dumb, right?
I love that. Yes.
See, we are already finding all kind of ways to tie that in.
We got
Um,
this.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So, how have your priorities changed since you first started your business?
Well, I hope a lot of our listeners understand that life changes no matter what. And that's the
Mhm.
same way in business. And even though we have three definite phases of business or stages, if you want to call it that, we have the startup phase, we have stabilization, and then we have scaling. And each one of those creates something different. And so if you're talking about my companies and businesses and how they've evolved, everything is going to be different. But if you're just looking at me as an entrepreneur, when I started out in the beginning, oh my goodness, there were so many things that I wish that I known that I know now. But back then I wasn't even online. Everything was just that very traditional coaching, meeting people in grocery stores, getting up in front of people on stage, just constantly being out of the house to build. And now I don't have to do that. I still do, but it's probably like 20% of how I get people in. A lot of it is online now.
Okay. Yeah. You know, COVID has changed a lot of things, right? One, it made us go from a lot of in-person training to making sure we had some virtual offer or for our clients. It also helped people that are uh, going to a W-2 type of situation every day. It made them rethink their career and how
Mhm.
they're handling their career, right? It probably
Yeah.
helps some people rethink and better understand their finances, right?
That and I'm always philosophical about things, and I know a lot of my friends who were W-2 that either lost their jobs or went just on Zoom, virtual, worked from home. They finally had the time to not feel like they were living to work, and they could start reevaluating what their priorities should be in life and where their passions could fit in with that. and then they
Yes.
could start changing or start building something that they actually loved to do, which is
Yes.
phenomenal.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I 100% agree with you. So, Reese, if a client, if one of your clients, if I rung the doorbell right now, that door right behind me is ding dong, and your client walked out of that door right now, all right, what would they say about you and your services that you offer them?
That's, I guess it's a little embarrassing for me to talk about myself in that way, but I mean, you can go online and look at all of that. A lot of them are just very thankful and surprised that they could actually accomplish something that they thought was impossible, because I'm very simple with how I teach my methods. My
Mhm.
business, the name is 5-Step Leadership. And so I try to create 3 or 5-step strategies for things that make it real easy for them. And the biggest part is just that they're inspired now and they're excited and they actually have hope again,
Yes.
or they've achieved something they never thought was possible. And again, that goes back to why I love doing this in the first place.
Yes. Well, and how does that make you feel when you help, when you see someone, um and also you see the light come on for them, like, and you remember when you first met them, or your first meeting with them, but then several meetings in, or whether that's months, years, or whatever later, you see the light come on for them, and they have that moment of, wow, I can do this, or I
Yeah,
can
and all
overcome
that
this.
energy is in them all of a sudden, and it's just
Yes.
phenomenal. Just even recently, one of my new clients, I think it was, he's very new. He's maybe 3 months old. So super, super baby new client.
Hmm.
And when I first met him, he had never owned a business before in his life, but he had so much experience as a construction person and electrical. And he knew he wanted to start his own business doing this. And he reached out to me and we got on a consultation call and I talked to him about what his goals were and we created a plan and I gave him some homework. And nowadays, I mean, when I first started, I would take anybody, right? But nowadays, I give them homework and essentially test people out before I take them on as a client to see if they're actually
Yeah.
willing to change, willing to do that work.
Yeah.
And because I don't want to work, I don't want to waste my time with someone who isn't willing to work. And he went off and he did it within 24 hours. I was so impressed. And after that, you just couldn't stop him. And so we just kept going from one thing to the next to the next. And, one of the things was that he needed to talk to an attorney and a CPA for this particular state and see what his requirements were. And he comes back to me and he goes, man, I talked to this person. I told them what you had said about what I needed to do. And they said, whoever you're talking to knows what they're talking about because that's exactly what you need to do and blah, blah, blah. And he was all excited about it. And he goes, thank you so much. And now after 3 months, I have never had somebody build a business this quickly, especially a traditional business. But after 3 months, he has more work than he can handle. He's literally hiring or making partnerships with collaborative people that do the same thing as him so he can hand work off because he
Wow.
can't handle it anymore. And I was just so impressed with how he took action and how he did it. And it was completely different from when he first came to me. And he was almost depressed, but
Yeah.
he had this like little tiny glimmer of hope in him of I really want to do this, but it's just so overwhelming and frustrating because I have no idea where to start. And literally 3 months later, there is hardly anything I have to do except kind of guide his next step to get him into stabilization.
Wow. Well, that's
Yeah.
that's the part I'm talking about. When you see that light come on for someone, man, that is, now you want to get paid, but that's just as rewarding, or even more rewarding than just that payday, right?
Yes, and most of the time, especially with coaches or consultants, we do it because we love to see that result in other people and we would do it for free. We get paid so that we can keep doing it for other people.
Yes. I love Deion Sanders, the great NFL cornerback. I love what he says around this. He says, look, I love playing football so much. I will do it for free as long as everybody else, including the owners, if they do it for free. He said, but because since they're not, then go ahead and pay me my money. And I love that philosophy, right? I love coaching. I love mentoring. I love helping people build a business. I love helping leaders become best in class leaders. And I would do it for free if everybody else would do it for free. But since they're not, I'm going to have to send you this invoice.
Yeah. But that's because coaching, or great leaders coach, and great coaches are leaders. And it isn't synonymous, but it is very, very tied hand in hand if you want to do a good job. And when you're a leader and you coach people, you have to come from that serving mindset. Yes. And when you serve other people, you are sacrificing. Because as human beings, we naturally want to talk about ourselves. Everything has to do with ourselves. The world revolves around us naturally. It's just how we are. And so we are giving up and we are sacrificing to do this job. So there has to be a bigger reason that keeps us in there. It's like teachers or nurses. It's such a difficult job that they love it if they're in it.
Right. Yes, absolutely. You know, Sherice, you may not know, but for viewers that watch the show, we have a segment on here called Would You Rather?
Oh, fun.
Right? So we are going to play a little round of Would You Rather. And audience, you can always participate. Just put your answers in the comments. So let's dive into another round of Would You Rather. So first of all, would you rather never eat dessert or never sleep?
Oh, definitely sleep is most important to me. I could sleep 24 hours a day. So okay. I'll take the sleep.
Okay. All right. Well, while you sleep, I'm going to go ahead and take the dessert.
I didn't get to sleep for 10 years in the Army. So now I'm trying to make up for all of that lost sleep.
Okay. All right. Would you rather share a room with your sibling or live alone?
That's tough. And it's interesting that you say sibling, because I actually talked my mother into moving down from Minnesota to where I'm at in Kentucky, and she lives with me now. But I am an extreme introvert. And so there are many times where I wish I was living alone until I realize all the positives. So that was hard for me. I don't know if I could choose. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. So we would say sometimes you live alone and sometimes you'll live with the sibling. So
how about this?
Rather,
how about we get a big house and we each have a wing of the house? Then I would live with somebody.
There you go. That's it right there. That's a good compromise. All right. So audience, you don't get to compromise. You have to pick one. Would you rather have a princess crown or a ballerina tutu?
Well, I already did the tutu thing, so I'm going to take the crown.
Okay. All right. I thought you were going to say, well, I have to have hip surgery, so I can't do the tutu anymore. So, would you rather win the lottery or never pay taxes again?
Oh, never pay taxes.
Never pay taxes.
Because if you win the lottery, you're spending most of that goes back to taxes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Would you rather be talented and poor or wealthy because you have good connections?
On a surface level, I would say talented and poor, but because that's how I grew up and I was happy. As you can be content. Happiness is a state of mind.
Sure.
But if you're rich, but you have good connections, that means you're great at communicating and you're great at building relationships. And that trumps almost everything else in the world. That is a skill set on its own.
Sure. So. Yeah, absolutely.
I'll let
So
y'all
here's a
choose.
good one. I'm sorry, go ahead. Say what you're going to say.
I said I'll let y'all choose that one.
Okay. Audience, remember, put yours in the comments. So, would you rather run out of gas in the middle of nowhere or drive 100 miles in the wrong direction?
100 miles in the wrong direction, because even if it's going the wrong direction, you're still exploring and adventuring those 100 miles.
Look at that. The leadership development teacher teaching in these moments of would you rather. I like that. So, all right, a couple more here. So, would you rather, excuse me, would you rather go to work in dirty clothes or a superhero costume?
Oh, superhero costume. Please just give me a reason. I will do it.
Okay, all right. So then there's a point here then. All right. I see I hit something here. So what superhero, if you were a superhero, who would that be?
Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman. Okay.
Mhm.
I can deal with that. I like that. Um, she was awesome. You know the
And she was great
superhero.
at horseback riding.
Yeah, she okay. All right. The superhero, the female superhero that I like the best is the Almighty Isis.
Mm,
Now you may be too young to know who the Almighty Isis is, but when I grew up, she was the superwoman back then.
she was big
Um,
into the comics. So uh, it's hard because if you have almost, okay, how do we say this? You almost have to preface this context and the questions when it has to do with superheroes on if you're talking about DC or Marvel.
mm, okay, gotcha.
Or if you really want to get into it, which actor played the character.
Character. Okay. All right. That's a good way to remember that and think about that. Last one that I ask everyone.
All right.
All right. So if would you rather have $100,000 in real money or $1 million in Amazon gift cards?
My boyfriend would tell you the Amazon gift cards, hands down, because I'm pretty sure we get a package every day from them. But again, philosophically speaking, or just getting a little bit deeper into it, when you say real money, are you talking about backed
Cash.
currency or fiat currency?
No, no fiat.
Ugh,
Cold hard
give me
fiat cash.
Amazon.
Okay.
Hey, I get my toothbrushes off Amazon. I buy everything there.
Everything off of Amazon. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for planning that round of Would You Rather. I always like to interject something into the show here. So let's keep going here. A few more questions. Leaders come in all different types of packages and with different types of strengths, right? What strengths do you feel are important for successful leaders to have and exhibit?
All the ones that I suck at. The ones that I've had to work at. So, being in the Army for 10 years, you learn how to make sure that your voice is heard. You speak up over everybody. You can yell at people. You force people into submission, essentially. And you have zero tolerance for many things. None of that has to do with people's emotions, their inspiration, what gets them depressed, where that breaking point is with that inside them. None of that has to do with it. I was really good in the Army. I was really good at yelling at people. That was my natural state. But great leadership is the opposite of that. Great leadership is about how you can influence somebody. And to influence somebody, you have to build that trust with somebody, and you have to inspire them, and you have to get them to want from inside themselves to do better and to run toward a goal. And you can't do any of that. You cannot lead people well if you don't care about them. And
Mm.
so I've been on a long journey, and I know it will be a lifetime journey for me to take that old self and evolve into the new self, especially when I'm coaching, and take a step back and be more empathetic and have that creativity and have that listening capability. Because if you don't have that, you're never going to be able to get on to the next skill sets of leadership, which involve being able to take a stand and being brave and courageous and all of those things.
Yes, I like that. So what I wrote down for our audience for leaders, she said you need to be an influencer. You need to be able to have trust. People need to be able to trust you, and you need to be an inspirational leader. Those three things are qualities that you out there listening right now, if you don't have it, it's okay. You can develop it.
I'm living proof of that.
As we all are. So, what strategies did you use when you first decided to market your business?
When I first started, I was completely traditional. So I worked with a mentor, two different mentors at the same time in a separate leadership company. And so I learned a lot from them, but it was very much just pounding pavement, everything short of knocking on doors. And then, in addition to that, if we were able to grow enough and practice enough and become good enough to speak in front of people, then we could almost steal their audience or be an opening speaker or something like that, where we got a little snippet on stage.
Hmm.
And that's how we would become a little bit more well known. And so for me, I had that ability to really play off of them and learn from them. But I didn't even have a website for years. I didn't do anything online. And nowadays you can't do that. If you, I mean,
Right.
I don't want to use absolutes. You can do it. It's just going to be very difficult. And
Sure.
as soon as you stop working the ground,
Hmm.
the referrals and people stop coming in. And so
Yes.
if you're very traditional, you're always going to be battling it, because we're not in the industrial era anymore. We're in the
Right.
information age. So you need to play into that.
Yes, absolutely. You got to change up what you're doing. And a friend of mine and the owner of the Breakfast Club restaurant here in Houston, he's owner of 4 different restaurants here in Houston, Marcus Davis, and he said, um, your audience, the consumer, the market is going to tell you whether you're doing something right or wrong. They're
Mhm.
going to
You
tell
just have
you
to listen.
by they purchase your product or not purchase your product.
Mhm.
They're going to tell you if your marketing works or not. Not necessarily by saying, "Hey, Marcus, your marketing isn't working." No, they're going to. No one's listening to your message. No one is. Your product is not growing, and you're spending all this time and money and energy to market
And
and
if you take
advertise.
that one step further, they will tell you all of the keywords you need. They will tell you what they want, how they want it, how fast they want it to fix their problem, and what problems they have if you listen to them. And you can
Yes.
listen to them by just pulling up questions on Google. You realize how many forums there are where people submit a question for a problem for every single field, every single industry. Pull those up, see which ones come up the most. Look at how other people, other competitors are answering those problems or fixing those problems. And look at testimonials or reviews everywhere that has even a leadership book on Amazon. If you pull up those testimonials and reviews, you can pull out keywords and put those into a title, and it goes viral just because you have
Mm.
those keywords, you have their verbiage. That's really
Yes.
important.
Yes, absolutely, 100% agree with you on that. So many times, Sherice, new entrepreneurs give up, they throw in the towel, or they just struggle. What
Mhm.
advice would you give someone right now who is questioning whether they should give up or just quit?
Mm. That's a tough question, and I even do a keynote about that, but the ultimate thing that I could say is when you're frustrated and overwhelmed, or confused, you're ready to give in, that's a temporary feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And it might have led up to something. It could have been all these years. I had a client who had tried to build her business for 10 years. 10 years she tried to build her business, and she never made over, I think, $3 or $4 grand a month. And it wasn't ever consistent. And so first you need to find somebody that can help you. Find a mentor or a coach that's actually the right fit for you. And there's a lot of scammers out there nowadays. That's why I say that.
Yeah.
But secondly, you need to realize that I think Tony Robbins says, and I'm going to botch this quote, but he says something along the lines of, you create the change in your life. And so you are the change. And when you want to see different results in your life, it starts with you making different changes. And that goes back to all the neuroscience of your patterns, your daily patterns create the success or the failure that you have. Not a lack of information,
Sure.
but being resourceful. That's what creates success. And so what I would tell somebody if they were right at the ending point of ready to give up, I would tell them first to find somebody great that they can work with. And then secondly, they need to start focusing on which patterns, which emotions are in charge of them instead of them being in charge of their emotions, and which aspects of their daily habits need to change so that they can get a different result. And then start being willing to take that change. There's 3 steps to lasting change. And the first one is making an unwavering decision. And I just put a podcast out last Wednesday that talks about this. But essentially, that unwavering decision, you cannot have a plan B. You have to be at that point where you are fed up. You are done. You cannot handle this anymore. You're finally ready and willing to change. And when you get to that point where you're just so exasperated and you're so just like, that's it, I am done, this is changing now. You get to that motion, that's when you can actually start making the change.
Yes.
But if you made a New Year's resolution and you were like, oh, it'd be good to go to the gym, or it'd be good to do this or do that, I should start doing this. Does that really sound like you're at that point of needing to make it, like you're sick of where you're at right now? Probably not.
No.
That's why you don't have the lasting change. You might change for a couple of weeks, but it doesn't ever stick because you haven't gotten to that point. So you need to have an unwavering decision that you will change because you cannot handle where you're at right now. And then it goes into the strategy of how to change, which comes from your mentor or coach. Well, at least it's the fastest way to do it. And the ability to being able to stay in there and have the resilience and the compassion toward yourself to give yourself a chance to make that change. So if you don't do those things, you don't have a right to give up. That's what I say. And that's kind of an army thing for me, but that's what I would tell my clients.
I like that. Unwavering decision to change, strategy on of how to change, getting with a coach or mentor, improving your soft skills, right? And then number 3 is the resilience to make the change. That means the ability to bounce back and take some action in the steps to change, to get better, and never giving up. I love it. And then you said, if you don't do those 3 things, you don't give yourself the right to quit. Is that what you said?
Yeah, they don't deserve to quit if they don't do those things.
You don't deserve to quit. Yeah. So you have to do these 3 things first. If you don't deserve to quit. Oh man, I love that. That is awesome. I'm going to write that. You don't do these things, you don't deserve to quit. Audience, I'm writing these things down for a reason, because I want to remind you of these points. I want to make sure you leave the show understanding these points. I want you to take these points and put them into your life. You may then find that, you know what? That lady said some things on that show that lit a fire in me. It sparked something in me. I need to reach out to her. So if someone needed to reach out to you, they wanted to connect with you. They wanted you to be their coach, their mentor, their inspirational lead. How do they do that?
I'm on Facebook. I have a website. You can always call me or message me as well. But the biggest, easiest ways are to go on my website, which is 5stepleadership.com. And the 5 is spelled out. It's FIVE. It's not the number. So 5stepleadership.com, where you can find me on Facebook. You can find, depending on what you need, I have 5-Step Leadership Business page on Facebook, but I also have Thriving Professional Coaches. And that really helps coaches build their business strategies.
Okay. All right, folks. And you will see her website in the comments. So you can click on that and to reach her. You're going to also find it. We're going to have it here shortly scrolling across the screen so that you can make sure that you go and reach out to her at 5stepleadership.com, right? And that's Sherice Kral. Now, we're not done yet, so don't quit. Don't go to the website just yet. Just mark it so that you can go to it later. We still have some more nuggets we want to get from her before she leaves, right? So what would you say the biggest thing that you learned from a mentor or a coach in the last 6 months that could benefit our audience?
The biggest thing that I've learned, keep in mind that this is always relative because we all have different problems. And so if you learn something that's just tremendous, it usually plays in with a big problem that you personally experience. And so for me, it's been hard transitioning from 10 years in the Army to coaching. And I told you why, because it's such a different mindset. And even though I've been coaching for 12 years, I still have a very embedded military mindset. And so sometimes it's really hard for me to be empathetic. And nobody that knows me will agree with this because I keep it inside of me. Every single person, if you talk to them about me, they will think that I'm very empathetic. But I'm not talking about what I show other people. I'm talking about how I feel inside. And so recently, I have learned to create a lasting change in myself to grow in this specific field because empathy ultimately comes from self-love. And if you are naturally very negative toward yourself and hold yourself to a really high standard like I do, then it's really hard to love yourself because you're never good enough for yourself. Yeah. And so that's what I've overcome recently and been learning the last 6 months, maybe a little bit longer than that. And I finally created that new pattern and that new habit to be able to be empathetic toward myself, which will make it easier for me to share with others. And that was a big step. So I'll tell you just the 3 steps of lasting change that we already talked about, I had to go through. And then I also realized that when you change your physiology, if you get up and do a jumping jack or you dance and you get into this peak state and it's just absolutely tremendous and you feel like you could conquer the world, that's when you need to start focusing on changing that pattern. And that's when you need to be making decisions. If you make a decision in a sad and depressive and I hate myself kind of state, you're never going to make a good decision. But you can train your emotions and you can control them. So you can purposely get into this state when you need it. It just takes some practice. It's like a muscle. And that creates a result. And so that's what I had to do with this really deep, difficult thing inside of me recently.
Awesome. So then that helped you as you're helping your customers. I mean, that breakthrough for you helped you as you're helping your customers.
Exactly. Because everything that we do personally and professionally with our development creates a ripple effect or reaction with how we treat other people.
I absolutely like that. You know, we have been talking to Miss Sherice Kral, and I've enjoyed having her on the show. Now, I have one last question for you. It's a big question, and I want our audience to hear this from you. So, if there was a book that was written about you, what would the title be, and what would you say? What would it say on the back of the book in the summary about Miss Sherice Kral?
I think it would have to do with one of my main keynotes. There's a really old book called How to Raise Yourself from Failure to Success in Selling, and I love that book. There's so many great principles. I would take the title and I would cut it down to say From Failure to Success, the story of resilience. And that would be mine, because so many times in my life, I have been torn away from my lifelong careers, from being abused my entire childhood, to being told that I can't be in ballet anymore because of my body, to being told that I can't be in the army anymore because of my body. These careers I thought were going to be my entire life. And then being told that I might have cancer, and then being told that you might have to file bankruptcy because your divorce went so badly, and all these things. And then very close people dying throughout that entire thing. My life, if you look at it from that point of view, sucks. But every single time I've gone through and helped myself learn how to grow from that instead of becoming stuck. Learn how to maximize skills from that and learn from it instead of be traumatized. And so resilience and the ability to go from failing at something, which is always temporary,
right,
to being able to succeed and actually use that as a catapult to your success is huge.
Yes, I absolutely love that, and that leads right into my final story for the night. It determines whether you look at life as positive or negative, and I can definitely say now I know more about you. You look at things from a positive perspective, even negatives that may have happened to you or around you. You look at the positive. And I heard about these two farmers. One was a positive farmer and one was a negative farmer. Now, when it would rain, the positive farmer would say, "Thank you, Lord, for watering our crops." But the negative farmer would say, "If it keeps this up, it's going to rot in the roots." See, when the sun came out, the positive farmer would say, "Lord, thank you for giving your plants valuable nutrients." But the negative farmer would say, "If he keeps this up, it's going to scorch the crops." One day, they went bird hunting together in a boat. The positive farmer had just got a new bird dog, and he was so proud of it, he wanted to show it off. He shot a bird and it fell in the water, and then he said to the negative farmer, "Watch this." Now the dog jumped out of the boat, ran on top of the water, picked up the bird, and ran back on top of the water to put the to put it in the boat. He asked, "Well, what do you think?" The negative farmer said, "I should have known that dog can't even swim."
I love that story.
You see, in life, you have to decide whether you are going to focus on the positive or the negative. In life, you have to decide whether you're going to make lemonade out of lemons. You have to decide if you're going to let, if you're at the beach and it's raining and it's cloudy, if you're going to let that rain stop you from saying, "But I'm still on the beach." You see, it's all about your perspective in life. Thank you very much for coming on the show. I've definitely enjoyed you coming on the show, and hopefully you've enjoyed it as well. I'm going to let you have one last message you want to give to our audience. You're definitely able to do that now if you want to.
You know what? All I would say is, no matter what has gone on in your life in the past, no matter how many people have told you that you can't or you shouldn't try for something, take some time tonight, sit down and write out your dreams without any cap and start focusing on how you can turn those dreams into reality, because you can.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. Now, folks, there's some people out there who are trying to understand how to overcome sales objections, and I want to help you in that realm. And I'm going to show you this quick, short video clip. Just a second.
Experiencing a sale objection can be a disheartening event. Through this workshop, your participants will learn how to push through to get that sale. Even the best quality of service or item can be turned down, and learning how to overcome these denials will make all the difference. Overcoming sales objections is an essential part of the sales process, as it will open up a whole new set of opportunities. It will produce new sales and provide an ongoing relationship with your new clients. Objections will always occur no matter the item being sold, but with this workshop, your participants will learn how to turn that no into a yes.
Absolutely. And if you want to understand how to overcome sales objections, either in your organization or an individual, we have courses for you where we can come in and teach this live. We can also give it to you as a virtual course, a do-it-yourself online course. So the link will be in the comments for you to check that out. But give us a call if you're interested in any soft skills training. But specifically right now, we're focusing on overcoming sales objections. And if you're an entrepreneur, you're a salesperson, and you're going to need to understand how to overcome sales objections. So check out the link in the comments. And again, thank you very much for tuning in tonight. I want you to understand, I want to leave you with, and that the only difference between ordinary and extraordinary is extra. The only difference between winning and losing is belief. The only difference between a person reaching their full potential and not reaching their full potential is desire. The only difference between hot water and boiling water is 1 degree. You see, at 211 degrees, water's hot. At 212 degrees, water boils. With boiling water comes steam. With steam, you can power a train. So you have to make up your mind that you're going to make that small change in your life. You're going to be that small difference in your life to go from boiling hot water to boiling water. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you have a wonderful evening. And as I always say, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu, and don't be on the menu. Thank you and good night.